the April 5th, 2021 DRB meeting. And I would like to start with the approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes? Does anybody have any questions or comments? All right, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes. All right, all in favor? Aye. Minutes passed. Okay. Let's see. So we'll open the public hearing. Does anybody need to disclose any possible ex parte communication with any of the board members regarding anything? Oh, okay. So I just want to remind everybody here that you'll all have a chance to speak. That's part of our policy. Also, the other thing is that we make our decisions in deliberative session, which is a session that it's a closed session, and it would be just the board members. So what we do for this meeting is we'll gather up all of the information from you folks and that we think we need to make a proper decision. And if it turns out that there are other questions that we have, we may go back to you. The other thing I would like to ask is when each of you speak, if you could stand up for me, if you can, and if you could just state your name very clearly so we can get it recorded, and that's
depending on the volume, we might have you come up to the post, depending on how loud you can be.
How much you project. Okay. So I think there's no changes to the agenda, Russ, that you have? Okay. So we're going to begin with new business, and that would be application number 2143. The application is for the Rainy Dairy Farm LLC, Peter Shumlin, owner and applicant, property located at 700 Westminster West Road. The applicant is requesting a minor subdivision to create 2 lots from the 161.6 acre farm. We're going to review this application under section 311 site plan review, section 447 rural residential district zone, and article 8 subdivision of land. This will all be from our 2017 zoning bylaw. So I think the way we would proceed would be, Mr. Shumlin, are you going to speak to the application for us?
Sure. I mean, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a pretty straightforward application. If you have any answering questions, you have basically, I assume you all have a survey undertaken by Stephen Ardo. But really the request is to create 2 lots. When my wife and I looked at the particular farm involved, this particular land has no agricultural use or value. There are a lot of houses on the road already, so we think it's perfect for housing. And we see the future of this particular piece of land as being really conducive to housing for, as you know, a lot of folks are looking for places to live right now. And it's pretty straightforward. If you have to answer any questions, but as you can see, there's roughly a 7 acre lot and a 13 acre lot. And we think they make good housing sites. So be happy to answer any questions you have. Appreciate your consideration, and we'll be here to help out if you need. Okay. Thanks so much.
I do not.
Everybody understands what we're Thank you. Now, we invite other folks to speak regarding the application.
Mr. Chair, my name is Fletcher Proctor. I'm here representing Philip Ranney, who lives down Old Cotting Road. And as it has been submitted, we are here to speak in opposition to the application. The first thing, frankly, is a technical issue. We don't believe a good notice was given of the application. In the packet I've given you, I think it's Exhibit C, is a picture if you can make it out, of the notice that's posted to a tree set back in the woods off Old Potting Road. I'd estimate it's probably 40 feet back from the road, so not even visible from Old Potting Road, or not even legible from Old Potting Road. And finding the notice itself is sort of a Where's Waldo exercise. The other thing about it is that we believe is a defect is that your zoning regulation says the notice is supposed to be posted on the nearest public right of way. Old Potting Road is not a public right of way. It was discontinued long ago. And there's a memo in your packet that was written by your zoning administrator a few years ago stating that. We also question whether this qualifies as a minor subdivision. Basically creating, the applicant has one lot and he's creating three. The fact that one of those lots has a pre-existing residence on it doesn't change the fact that one piece of property is turning into three. We think under your zoning regulations, that means it is a major subdivision, and consequently, the application is lacking a great deal of information that should come in with a major subdivision. The lots, the building lots being created further in on Old Potting Road, because of Old Potting Road not being a public right of way, the lots have no frontage under the definition in the zoning regulation. That means they have to have deeded access, and they don't. There's no deed giving access to those lots, no easement deed over Old Potting Road. And based on that survey that you have, it looks like probably 10 different landowners would have to give their consent to the full use of Old Potting Road. Old Potting Road itself also is a problem for this kind of development. The applicant's correct. There are a number of houses down there already. I would submit that's not a reason to make a bad situation worse. It's a one-lane road. If somebody comes the other way when you're going down, you have to pull off, not just squeeze to the side, but literally get out of the way. It's also, you'll see from the pictures I've included, got no drainage. There's no ditching down either side of the road, which makes it challenging at this time of year. But also, both of those things, if you ask me, create a hazard. I haven't heard whether the fire chief has been asked to weigh in on this, but I'd be curious to know what he thinks about access by having fire equipment. If people are going to build houses, more houses down that road, and there's a fire down there at the wrong time of year, I think it'd be a serious problem.
I'm not trying to debate, but I traveled down that road. There are a lot of houses on that road.
There are houses and
A lot of houses.
Well, as I said, there's probably 10 property owners who would have to give their consent.
Right.
Many of those property owners are represented here. Many of the Dietzes are here.
Yeah.
And some are further down the road and some are less far down the road.
Yeah.
But again, just because they're there doesn't make it a good idea to put more there. And these ones are pretty far in. Based on the survey map, it looks like these building lots would be between 1,200 and 3,000 feet down Old Potting Road. So you're not starting right at the easy part of the access to get to these lots. So for all of those reasons, and have the memo which goes into much more detail and cites the specific zoning regulations, but we are opposed to granting the permit.
So just a couple quick questions. So is this the Old Potting Road I found it on all the, different maps and the different websites and everything. So this is not a town road. What's the status? I mean, is it it's a private road?
At best, it's a private road. It's, Russ, what do you call these things under your zoning regs now?
It is a private road.
It's an indefinite something, or what's the term you use in there?
I don't know, he probably has that paper called the status of Old Cotting Road that he gave the game warden when we got in trouble with an ATV.
That was off a different road, but Old Cotting is a private drive.
It's legally classified according to the town as an unidentified corridor, which sort of overstates the case in a sense, because of course, you go out there and you can see that there's a way that people travel in and out. But again, it's unidentified corridor is a legal definition for something that doesn't have any status as a town right away at all.
Okay, I just wondered because they had a sign and everything at the end that looked like a town, like a town sign basically. So I was wondering what the status was.
I gotta sign it, well, actually, there's a private roads will have those things.
Oh, they do? Okay, yep.
Under the 911 process, we were all given the opportunity to put up those signs,
Okay.
even for private roads.
So you're saying basically that there's no right of way to Mr. Shumlin's. I'm just trying to make sure I get everything. We have to go through all of this at the end and try to make sense and have the best, result for everybody. So I'm just trying to gather all the information here. He has no legal access, is that what you're implying?
He has,
East Putnam Brook Road.
And so what's that got to do?
East Putnam Brook Road runs across the other side of the river. Town road,
That's a town, okay, in the town of Westminster?
and you got property that borders.
Wait, I didn't hear your answer.
these lots are at the back end of things. When Old Cotting Road was discontinued, and if you go out there, there are the remnants of stone walls down both sides of it. I'm speaking sort of as a witness here, but looks to be a two-rod road to me. And when a road is thrown up, when it's discontinued, it reverts to the center line for the adjoining property owners. Under that legal rule, 16 and a half feet would have reverted to the Ranny Farm side of the road. So there's a 16 and a half feet of a right of way, but not exactly all of it travelable. You'd be off the edge of the road to drive it. The zoning regs require a 50-foot wide deeded right of way. So it's far short of what's required by your zoning regulations.
So all these other properties that are out there have the 50-foot needed?
No, they're mostly pre-existing. Some of them, frankly, I'm not going to speak to why they might have been permitted or not, but apparently nobody was really focused on the issue of the right of way.
Well, that's why we're asking these questions, because I just got concerned about the road when I drove out there. It's the same thing you said. I didn't know if it was a town road or if it was, I wasn't sure the status of the road. And it is fairly narrow, and so how has anybody ever requested that the town make that a town road, or is that?
It was a town road, and they, at the time, requested it to be thrown up and turned into a private drive.
Oh,
Was it a trail at the time?
was it
No, it was a town road.
an actual plowed town road by the?
Or that's to my knowledge.
Okay.
Now, I spent the winter, I think 1978, 79, I lived on that road. And I'm telling you, no town plow ever.
Oh, okay.
Howard Deeds had a crawler, and he would bring it out through there, but no town truck ever turned in that road.
Well, all I'm trying to determine right now is, like, first of all, is there access, to the piece of property? Obviously, he owns land that goes to it, so he could make another driveway himself if he if Mr. Sheldon wanted to, he could make another. But I was just trying to determine whether it was even the possibility that he had access on what exists.
Well, not the sort of access your zoning regulations require.
Okay.
So I just want a few clarifications. So part of Old Cotting Road, it reverts to the center line, then the applicant owns part of that, correct?
Yeah.
So
16.5 feet.
so the other houses on that are essentially traveling on his property,
In a sense, yes.
in a sense?
Well, when the
Or
town,
vice versa,
Or-
right?
or
yeah,
vice versa,
That's right,
just-
when
both,
the
yeah.
town throws up a road,
Yeah,
it reverts to the center line.
correct.
But people who have to access their house by driving over that old town road still have a private right of way to do that.
A
What we're talking
deeded
about-
private right of way? A deeded private right of way?
No, by operation of law. But what we're talking about here is creating a new right. I mean, the only way to get into these lots is to create a new right of way where none exists. Your regulations require a 50-foot wide right of way, and there is none.
So just to back up, not to play devil's advocate or try to like, I'm still hung up on the road deal. First off, I'm not even thinking about the lots as much as the road. So all the lots that pre-exist then made it through zoning without each of them getting a deeded right of way? Or was the road a town road when those lots were all created, or, because there's some houses out there that look pretty new.
Road before any other new subdivisions except for these.
Could you
came up.
please state your name, sir?
So all the houses that are there are pre-existing.
The ones on the left side?
Before Act 178. Act 178 says if you have any other means to access your property, not house, property, you must do so. So people having property frontage on East Putney Brook Road are required to use that right away. And that's a state statute.
You mentioned East Putney Brook Road before. Can you just, where is East Putney Brook Road?
It runs on the other side of the river and part of them lots.
Yeah, I see. Oh, I see. So he could come in from the other side, is what you're saying?
Yes.
And he could have access to those two lots from the other side. And he wouldn't be
Please state your
required.
name for the record.
Oh, sorry.
David Dietz.
I'm sorry?
David Dietz.
Thank you.
All right, so I missed, I guess I didn't see the East Putney Brook Road, but, so technically then he has access to those lots from that other side. And he has half of the road.
And I believe that's still a town road,
Which one's still a town road?
East Putney Brook.
Okay.
So all of those houses down there and lots were developed prior to the road being given up, is that true, Mr. Parker?
Well, your zoning administrator might have a better deal. To the best of my knowledge, yes. I think most of those folks have been in there a while. And I think some of the people toward the end did work out rights of way. But there's no right of way that's associated with Randy Farm LLC.
So how would
I think
they?
I can say something here, clarify, because I was on the Ancient Roads Committee that
Could you
was
please
set
state
up.
your name, sir?
My name is Jared Rolston,
Thank you.
and I was on the Ancient Roads Committee that was set up because of these unidentified roads that didn't have a status that was clarified. Old Cotting was one of those roads. It had no status. And after the Ancient Roads Committee met and made a determination, they decided it is a private road. So therefore, people who owned the land and lived on that road, that section whereby their property reverted to them. However, everyone on the road has a right of way to access their property. No, they don't need to get a right of way. It's just granted because they own property on the road. So anyone who owns property has a right of way to access their property. Yeah, it does, because he's not right.
Yeah, it's all a big mess.
That's the old
See,
way.
this is the whole, the only reason I'm stuck on the road is because we have 2 lots that they want to create. But if you can't even get to the 2 lots, we're wasting our time here, that's why I'm trying to figure out the road thing first.
Anyone who owns property on the road has the right of way to access their property.
Right.
Okay, do you agree with that, Mr. Mark?
Yes, I just don't think they get to create new rights of way.
Well, was that again, one more time? I mean,
I just don't think they get to create new rights of way.
Is that stated in your packet? Is there evidence to back that up in the packet?
Well, it's the fact that, well, maybe David can speak to Act 178 better, but the fact that you retain a right of way for access when a road is thrown up, I'd have to dig up the case for you. It's a Supreme Court case that says that.
If I remember correctly, it was contingent upon if you had any other access, you were required to use it.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean you retain a right of way if you have other means of access. So if you have other means of access, you don't retain your right of way.
So I guess I didn't quite hear the answer that I was looking for. Old Cotting Road, there's many houses on it. It was thrown up at one point. There's new construction after that, or new lots that were developed? No subdivisions, nothing since,
the houses down on the left aren't relatively new houses?
Not that, not since Act 178. I mean, what
Well, not
David just described is not just Act 178. That was the legal definition of an easement by necessity. That if somebody landlocks a parcel, they, by implication, leave you with, they have to give you a right of way unless it's specifically excluded. So what the legislature did was grafted the existing common law definition of an easement by necessity into 178. But an easement by necessity says exactly that. If you have another route of access, you can't get an easement by necessity. And this property, if you start out looking at the whole property, it's, East Putney Brook Road is the closest to the back side of it, but it also fronts on McKinnon Road and on the Westminster West Road, right, just at the other end. This whole property is not devoid of access. It's only when you start trying to carve building lots out of it that you run into trouble.
If I remember correctly, there's an access road behind the barn, that runs out behind the farm, out behind Philip's house, that can access that property.
Sir, what's your name?
Howard Dietz,
Thank you.
sorry. So there is other access besides South Valley Road or East Putney Brook Road on the other side of the brook. By the way, the other side,
Right out here, straight up question, is the road the big issue?
pretty much, yes, we've been asking that question for quite some time.
Right, and that's why I'm sticking on the road right now, because I keep hearing about the road, I wanna find out what.
So my family, which I'm representing somewhat,
Yeah.
if I speak correctly about the things that I'm gonna speak about, are that we've never really asked the town to help plow the road or do the maintenance. We've all done that for 40 years on our own, with our own expenses, our own equipment, and all the new development is gonna put more strain on our stuff. Frankly, we don't want more access, and right-of-way doesn't mean that we need a definition on right-of-way, whether that does not mean you can improve it, it means you can travel over it. Not going there with big dump trucks and start dumping all gravel and making a super highway out of it. That's not what we're looking to see, no matter who moves in there. Yeah, it would make things easier to get there, but we're not really anxious to see more development up there, for one thing. And I'm pretty much the principal behind the winter maintenance of my equipment and my family's equipment to get in and out of there. And it becomes quite a little mess, as exhibited by the December 25th snowstorm. We had 3 or 4 trucks all stuck at the same time trying to get in, get the roads plowed out. And it becomes quite a strain on manpower and financial to do that. So part of that's the reason we want a definition on who owns and what the definition to the center line of the road. Frankly, we've got 3 different answers over the years about who decided what should be done about it and who owns it. And so we're still in the air about how this whole system's gonna be.
Well, that's actually, this is why I'm going to the road.
Yep.
Because
I think that's.
I'm a little confused now by, the two things. Because it sort of sounds like, sometimes we're saying that, anybody just gets access over this road, and then sometimes we're saying that they have to get a right of way, and I'm just not, I'm gonna try to figure out,
And over the years, it's been quite lopsided on who participates financially, on who helps maintain and they travel over it, which is probably gonna get adjusted fairly shortly.
So, maybe if I could just ask, Mr. Shulman, what is is Old Cotting Road what you'd like to have as access to that road?
Yeah, due respect to those who suggested, you cannot get to this land that we're talking about from the access they're suggesting. There's East Putney Brook runs through there, then there's a very steep cliff that leads up to the flat land on the, so you just, no one will do that. What they're suggesting would prohibit any kind of building or development. I just want to suggest that we're being held to a different standard than everybody that came before us. And let's remember that, if the attorney here is correct, apparently I own 16 and a half feet of the road that they all travel on. No one else has that distinction. In other words, I'm the only property owner who owns all the way from the Westminster Town Road to the lots I'm proposing. Everyone else is traveling past those lots, or at least to the beaches and forward, is going over land that on the other side, on the south side, is owned by a variety of people. But I think I have the distinction of being the property owner that actually owns the vast majority of the land to location that we're going to. I've been around long enough to remember that when I was a kid growing up on just the west side of this piece of land, which is where I grew up. If I could just speak without being up there, appreciate it. There were no houses out there. There was no development on that road. This notion that somehow the status has changed and there were no houses built after that, I think you'll find is also incorrect. So all I can say is, listen, the beaches and everybody else are correct. The status of the road is murky at best. As I understand it, the neighbors have gotten together and one of the people in the neighborhood kind of collects money that gets contributed to the good work that Howard does, keeping the road clear. And obviously, I would insist that any person who bought the land would join that effort and join the rest of the community in keeping the road maintained and plowed.
Why don't you join that effort?
Excuse me?
Why don't you own half of the road, why don't you join the effort and help you to maintain it?
The only reason
You haven't paid anything the whole time you've owned
For
it.
40 years
You own half the road, but you
that
don't
we
help us maintain it.
maintain.
Driving just.
you gotta have people just give their names.
Be prepared to back up what you
We'll
throw
let
out.
everybody have a chance.
But I get to answer the
Yeah.
it's a perfectly reasonable question. Perfectly reasonable question. The answer is, I don't use that road currently because there's no building on that part of the farm. Well,
And your buses were using it.
Yeah, we have that outside.
the point is,
You're sending guns at family members.
Did you sign Act 170?
so I don't know if that helps you with to clarify, but the point is, I do feel that strongly that I should be held to the same standard as everybody else. And the suggestion that somehow, I'm adding, these two lots would be adding extraordinary development to this road is really not accurate. The suggestion was made by the attorney over there that this was towards the end of the road. It's not. I think it's probably about halfway to the end of the road that's currently maintained. So, just to clarify, the only other lot that's closer to the Westminster West Road on the north side of the road is Phil Randy's on a piece of land that I can convey to you, and it's very close to these other two lots.
Did somebody over here want to make a comment?
Did you sign Act 178?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay.
And I'm complying with 178 in this request.
Only review I would have for that argument is that how long has he owned that property? And over the 40 years that we've been doing the maintenance, and so it's a little lopsided on contributions.
Hey, in fairness, you guys have never approached me to ask me to be number one, number two. I've never had anyone living on that road.
Well, yeah.
Phil does, but it's
You
not
had
mine.
buses.
You had buses with
With
squatters
people
living there.
there.
Okay, so, as everybody has stated, unfortunately, what I was trying to get at is maybe more murky than than I originally started with, you know?
It's a can of worms that you're gonna have to seal up.
I was hoping that, you know, we were gonna have some definitive, something definitive on the road, because I thought that was sort of what we were debating originally. So I think I know what Mr. Shulman's intent is as far as the lots. I'll look, you know, 158, I'm not familiar with, you know, we'll take a, 178, Russ is gonna write that down so we can take a close look at that. And the information that we received from Fletcher Proctor, we just got it, so we're gonna wanna go over this and try to make, I mean, we're here to try to make
Hello,
the decision we can for everybody.
hello,
We'll have to do is
hello. Can I ask a question?
Oh, is there somebody? Oh, yeah.
My name's Nancy.
Yes, could you please state your name?
My name's Nancy Pike, and I live at 164 Old Cotting Road. And I guess what everybody said about the road, I will just echo. But I have a question about something that Mr. Proctor asked earlier, which is, could you explain to me the difference between a minor development and a major one? And also, how many times can someone come forward and ask for a minor development before it turns into a major development?
You want to answer that? Russ, or-
Subdivision.
Okay, hold on just 1 second.
My understanding is that an application is reviewed at face value. When multiple requests are made, Act 250 governs that particular development for us. Plus, our immediately goes to major, because now you've got more than one. And that is all within, I think it's 5 years. So to the best of my knowledge, you start with a minor if you have 2 lots that you're creating, and after that, it's a major subdivision, but each are looked at on face value until such time as Act 250.
I think what Mr. Proctor is alluding to, and please correct me if I'm wrong, might be like the wording in the definitions, because it's a little murky, just like the road situation. And just to let everybody know, we didn't write the zoning bylaws. We were just the ones that have to try to interpret them. I'm going to read minor subdivision real quick, and it says any residential subdivision creating 2 lots in which does not include any of the following. Any new road access of 800 feet in length, any multiple family housing projects, any planned unit development, or a series of minor subdivision in the tract of land occurring over a 5-year period. So you can't keep subdividing over this 5-year period that we have. I think the question is, now we're saying, so Mr. Shumlin, if you say it this way, he's creating 2 lots. So that sort of says there, he's creating 2 lots. But if you look at that, it doesn't have the word more. It doesn't say 2 lots, more or less, you know what I mean? So I think, is this what you're trying to drive towards? The minor and major? Because it becomes a major subdivision when it's 3 or more lots.
And
So it's the creation part that's,
if you had one piece of land,
Right.
and you did that to it,
yes,
you'd be creating 3 lots.
right, and that's where,
Just because the proportions are different in this, doesn't make it conceptually any different.
right.
It's, there was 1 lot there before, and that 1 lot essentially has ceased to exist because it's been reconfigured. It's now one of the new 3 lots.
Okay.
You know, part of it becomes one of the new 3 lots.
Right, so that is, unless I'm wrong, it's a technicality basically in the process, because there is the opportunity to file a major, a major subdivision. So we have to have a meeting like this actually in a major subdivision where we go over everything first, talking it all over. So I guess technically we're still in the process. And the technicality, I guess we'll have to discuss that amongst ourselves and Russ and see where we're at with that. But Mr. Shumlin, would you like to have this?
Mr. Chair, I would just argue that that's a very imaginary interpretation of the law. And if that in fact is correct, what Attorney Proctor suggested, then you can only create 1 law, 1 subdivision on a piece of land in the future without having a major subdivision. So it's creative, but I think it's inaccurate.
And the terminology is where we're, I mean, it's funny when you read it. I mean, it is definitely a questionable, I guess. It's not so specific, but I understand what you're saying as well. We've actually been back around
The only other thing I wanted to just respond to very briefly, and maybe it's not worth responding to, or my concern, but this argument about the notice is, in my view, also creative and inaccurate.
All the signage that, okay.
I mean, my wife took a picture of the sign from the road, happy to show it to you all, but what the notice to me said was, state statute requires the enclosed notice of public hearing be posted in view of the right-of-way until after the hearing, and that's exactly what we did, and it's perfectly readable from Old Cotting Road. So, if it hadn't been, I suggest maybe all these people wouldn't be here tonight.
I'd like to say that it all depends.
I would also like to make a statement.
Hold on, one more person.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is Marty Moskrup. I also live on Old Cotting Road.
I'm Mr.
And,
Name.
Martin Moskowitz.
Thank you.
and I indeed also oppose the subdivision. I believe it with clarification that if it is a private road and has been since I moved here and before I was here, then it should be that Peter's land would need an easement or another right of way. Thank you.
According to Act 178, that's not the legal right of way. And the legal right of way to access them properties is on East Putney Brook Road. Now, there's been cases that have been decided that it doesn't matter how costly or inconvenient it is to access them properties from that right of way. It doesn't give a right of way to dwellings or sites to build a dwelling. It merely gives you access to the property.
Well, again,
And it may be expensive and inconvenient to access from East Putney Brook Road, but that still doesn't change the fact that he has access there.
Okay, so, I guess, we're basically, maybe, I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like I'm actually creating more questions than I had originally, of making more, you know, I've got more questions, things that I'm gonna look into. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Do you have any questions you want to ask directly? Does anybody?
My wife does.
Your wife, okay, yeah, your
I
name?
just want to state for the record, my name is Vicki Goulis, and I do want to state for the record that I do have a deeded right-of-way from every landowner abutting the road right to my property. I was required by my bank to get that, and it is in the town records.
Okay, good. Now, so where's you live, how far down do you live? Are you past these two lots?
My property abuts Mr. Shumway.
Directly across.
Directly across.
And I want to say, my name is Teresa Sylvester, and my property also is directly across from these lots. I'm opposed to it also
Okay.
because of the fact that emergency services, fire, the more lots that are out there, the more dangerous it becomes for houses and my family out there.
Okay. So then do you have the same right away?
I was not,
I have.
You
My
have.
name's Tom D.
Yep.
And I've lived out there, I lived past my sister Vicky.
all of our lots were subdivided
And I
off.
had my lawyer made me go to her lawyer and get a deeded right away from my sister because she had more legal access, is what my lawyer told me, than anybody else. Because she did the paperwork years ago.
Okay.
So is that a 50-foot deeded access?
I would have to look at it more further but I would say, yeah, it's legal.
At the time.
Because
When it was
my
granted,
wife
they were
worked for
legal.
lawyers at the time, and it was a really good recommended lawyer.
Well, Act 178 gives him a legal right of way to it anyway, because there's no other access except for Old Cotting Road.
I think, we go into the deliberative session anyways. I'm gonna leave it like this, that we're going to certainly go into a deliberative session. We're going to discuss all this, and I think we're gonna try to come up with, you know, what we have for, the 178, I don't have any knowledge of that, so, we'll have to kind of just go through and make sure we know what we're talking about before we make any decision, and this also from, Fletcher, what you gave us, I'd like to just take some time and look through everything and make sure that, we know what we're saying. You know, I don't want to make any decisions or any promises or anything else.
I think the town should buy the road back.
The town?
Okay, the town road, buy it back. I mean, we could name our prices.
A good point of reference would be to consult with Real Basin. Is he still the fire chief or? Paul Sprader. He's talked to me about access to the lots back there and asked me how open it is and whether or not I do a good job of keeping it open. Well, me and the family. And he's expressed concern about being able to get in there. And there has been an accident down pretty close to Jared's piece of property that was inaccessible, and my own brother was involved in it, and they had to backboard him all the way out of there, at least 300 feet, just to get the truck near him. So there is a concern you might want to consult with the
I
fire.
believe Jared's property had a fire on it many years ago, and the fire truck got stuck down in there.
So by adding more lots, I think it's more dangerous to have ambulance and fire rescues up on that road, so the town needs to determine that.
If everybody, I'm not gonna use the word feels good, but if everybody feels like they've got their chance to talk and, express what they wanted to us.
I hate to say it, but why don't you do a show of hands of who owns property and who opposes it?
Well, I got a pretty good feeling that I see, I see who's opposing, so, but I think, if you guys wouldn't, yeah, okay, there's one more person back there, yeah?
I got a question on Phil Brandon on Old Cotting Road too. Peter, why are you subdividing the land?
Is it for personal use or is it just for money? What comes down to?
What's your reason for subdividing the farm?
I would like to know that too. And is this the end of Brady Farm LLC altogether? Is it gonna be turned into a major development down the road and
Or a campground
and we're
all
gonna
the
lose
way down
another
the road.
family farm that?
So I'm perfectly happy to address the future of the land. So you probably know that this is actually part of a larger piece of land that I own and have preserved over the years. And it totals more like 500 acres in total. As we look at this particular piece of land, it has no agricultural value, as I mentioned earlier to the chair, and we think it makes good housing. So there is a need for housing in southern Vermont right now, and we think that these two lots could be used would be a better use of the land, frankly, than currently what's happening. It's in a developed area already, which I think people would acknowledge that Deeks family has lived out there for a number of years. They created lots that were less than what the town zoning is today because they created them before there was town zoning. But because it's a pretty congested area of housing now, we feel it's an appropriate place to have 2 additional houses. So people need housing, we'd like to meet the need.
So this is financial.
So you're saying it's buildable because of all the landowners on it already that have put thousands and thousands of dollars into that road?
Yeah, and listen, I'm perfectly happy to work with the community to make the road better. I think
We don't want it wide.
No, I'm not
Could I get
suggesting.
a straight answer on why you're subdividing it? Is it financially driven?
I just answered that, no.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. Well, and
That was a very political answer. but it wasn't.
I just don't wanna make this a venue for, I'm sure emotions are running high and everything, but we gotta get to, okay, do you have something to talk about the road or the subdivision or?
So I own property. My name is Jennifer Leonardo. I own a piece of property that my parents subdivided for me. And as Mr. Shumlin just stated, he plans on developing housing. So I think the proper thing to do would be to contact the fire department and speak to Mr. Cole Streeter about access and having vehicles, fire trucks, and everything else being allowed to be going up there. It'd be a safety issue for all of us on that road. I personally do not live there. They've not built on there. But for access and for my family, I think you should consult with Mr. Cole Streeter.
Okay, sure. Yeah, no, I mean, the road is obviously something that has to be addressed. I don't know if I don't know if we have any authority over what happens on that road. Unfortunately, Russ is sitting there quiet. He's probably gonna be the guy that has to deal with anything like that.
So if you were to encourage the building and the use, non-legal use of Old Cotting Road as access to those properties in violation of 178?
I don't endorse anything that's illegal, no, I don't. And I'm not speaking to the 178 that you keep referring to because I have no knowledge whatsoever of it, never heard of it, never read it. We need to do more, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. So if maybe Mr. Rainey can give us our final question and.
Well, since I didn't get an answer to my question, I'm just gonna assume it's financially driven.
Yeah.
For subdividing the farm and selling 2 building lots. So I would like to ask Mr. Shumlin if he would consider selling the development rights to the farm to the Vermont Land Trust. So he gets some money, and everybody else in the community would get a piece of money.
Well, unfortunately, that's something you guys will have to work out. We're just trying to figure out, whether a couple of lots get subdivided. We don't have any power over any of the rest of this, so. Did you have something, Tom, that you wanted?
Yeah, I wanted an answer, is the end of the Randy farm altogether? Is it gonna get carved up into,
Oh,
and we're gonna be back here next year going, hey.
You're Tom?
Yeah,
Tom.
he wants to put another lot here, another lot here, another lot here, and we're in a major development, and it's another farm down the tube.
Yeah.
And the business I work in, I see 13 farms in New Hampshire, yes, last year, go by the wayside.
Yeah.
And it's troubling.
Yeah, well, nobody wants to see a beautiful Vermont change.
Or New Hampshire changed in any way.
Yeah. Okay, so I think, hopefully I gave everybody, everybody feel like we gave you a chance to, oh, okay, sir, yeah?
Yeah, my name is Gordon Hayward, my wife Mary and I live right on the corner where Old Cotting Road meets the Westminster West and McKinnon Road.
Sure.
And we have 18 acres of meadow that are overseen by the Vermont Land Trust. And so my response is really an emotional one. That is that I think I speak for a lot of people in southeastern Vermont, that one of our great fears is that the Randy Farm is going to be subdivided into building lots. And it scares me to death to think of the history, the 200-year-old history of that land ever being turned into building lots. I know this is outside of the purview of this meeting, but it's an undercurrent that a lot of us, I think, are very concerned about.
Mr. Chair, I'll just respond to that.
Okay.
There's no one that's done more to preserve that land than me. I bought it, just so we all know, and from Harold and Joyce Rennie, at a time when they were facing real difficulty on the farm. And I wanted it to remain a farm so badly that we worked out an arrangement where I bought it, I upgraded the buildings at considerable expense, and I had an agreement, you can go see it in the deed, that simply says, Rannies can continue to farm this land as long as they will continue to run a dairy farm, generationally into the future, and all they have to do is pay the property taxes. In other words, there was no return on the investment, or no, I wasn't asking anyone to help me carry the $100,000 that I had put into the farm.
So you set them up to fail, basically.
Can I finish? That's what you did.
So when it stopped being a dairy
You
farm,
knew the dairy industry was in trouble.
when it stopped being a dairy farm, run by the Rannies, I brought in another young gentleman who ran it as a dairy farm for a while. When that didn't work out for him, the dairy farming is pretty tough in a barn like that. It's not a modern barn. It's now farmed and leased by David Major and Yesenia Major. They use it, as all these people know here, for their considerable effort at making one of the best cheeses in Vermont. In addition to that, I just think it's worth mentioning that I put a lot of energy into upgrading the farm, ensuring that it remains a viable agricultural entity. So the suggestion by Gordon or anyone else that somehow this is the development of a farm is pretty outrageous and over the top. Gordon has worked with me, often come over and said, hey, what do you mean about the invasive species, and work on that, so on and so forth. But I just want to make the point that there's not anybody in this room that has spoken, with very few exceptions, one of the daughters, who didn't build a house and lives happily on that land. And the suggestion that 2 additional houses is somehow going to change the world just seems to me unreasonable and sort of over the top. So all I would ask the board is to hold me at the same standard as everybody else in this room. And when Phil wanted to build a house for he and his family, I conveyed him 5 acres out on this exact same road and just breezed through, and he built a house and has lived there ever since. Now that someone else wants to, all of a sudden it's, high treason. So let's all keep in perspective here what we're really talking about. And all I'm asking for is fairness, and to be held at the same standards as everybody else in this room.
Well, I think that all changes with Act 178.
Just for everybody
That's a difference.
to understand where we're coming from, we're trying right now to gather as much information so that we can actually make a reasonable determination on what takes place here. We're gonna check on everything that we talked about. If we need more information, we'll get a hold of everybody. I think Russ has everybody's names and,
Everyone that spoke.
so.
Mr. Sumlin seems to think that we're discriminating against him. I don't believe that to be true. I believe that the Act 178 that he himself signed has changed that. I don't believe the last house that was built on the road was yours, Philip?
No, there was somebody else that built down beyond me.
I believe yours was before Act 178.
Might be right about Robert.
And this other person that you're talking about, I believe that one was before Act 178.
Alright,
So Act 178 is the issue.
We'll take one more question from Phil, and I think I'm gonna close down this section.
Peter brought up a whole bunch of stuff that was one-sided kind of at the end there.
Okay.
He's talking about this lease agreement with my parents and all that good stuff. I'm happy to share that with anybody that wants to see it. The fact of the matter is he put a ton of money into that place to make it look better from the road and to rent it out as rental apartments, or rental housing as he is now, and in the trailer across the road. And me getting my land when he bought the farm from my parents, that was part of the deal. He can talk all day how he wants to say how he conveyed it, he gave it away. Well, my parents weren't going to sell him the farm unless I got 5 acres of land. I'd like to be clear on that fact.
Okay, perfect. So I think if everybody, I'm gonna try to stop things right here.
Can I bring up just one more?
One more thing, that's it.
Also, I had a water issue this summer.
Okay.
Where I believe my well went dry. And we put more blocks in there, and I'm concerned about that happening too. That we're gonna start water wars in there where, now his well went dry because I drilled mine deeper, and they drilled theirs deeper, and they drilled theirs deeper, type thing.
Okay.
So
So I'm gonna just make a broad statement here, just so you guys all understand. We have a book that we're given here that has a lot of stuff written down. Fletcher Proctor has disputed a few of the things on behalf of you folks, or some of you, and we're gonna look into that. But just so you know, none of this stuff is, we're not sitting here, I'm not holding you to a higher standard. I understand, we have to go through this book. What happened 25 years ago, 50 years ago, lots of things happened that aren't in this book anymore. This book became a result of all that sort of thing. So we're gonna go through here, we're gonna gather some more information, we're gonna try to make the best decision we can. I'm sure, obviously, somebody's not gonna be happy, but I just wanna let you know, we're gonna try our best to come up with a final decision. And I'd just like to, if I can, I'd like to close this application, and we have to move on to another one. So, thank you very much, everybody, for coming, and
Thank you.
thank you.
I gotta get some water.
I can't hear you. I still can't hear you.
That's why I tried to make everybody kind of
Give me a call, and I will go back into it. I don't know what you're exactly talking about. Talking old What's that? Again, I don't remember, probably it was on my notes.
No, actually, did you know?
No, they did.
I didn't go down. I've been down. Oh, yeah.
Chris, you have an open meeting. Let's do it.
Okay. Excuse me, if I could ask everybody to move outside, please. We can all just step outdoors for us, please. Thank you. You're welcome. Sorry about that. Is anybody showing up for the second one?
I didn't hear you.
Is anybody showing up for the second?
No, I'm reading a message, but I've got you.
All right.
I can do it.
I am reading it for Jerry Hine. Okay.
Good. Excuse me, can I just have you guys?
All right, thank you.
Can I have everybody just step outside for me? We got another one going, so thank you. All right.
I'm sure you want to send your fast.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Make a good decision.
Yes, we will.
All right, so I'd like to open application number 21-44. Gary Hyman and Eleanor Riley. Property located at 78 Dorsch Hill Road. The applicant is requesting a change of use, creating from the 2-car garage a 1-car garage with stairs leading to a 2nd floor apartment, created by raising the original roof. This application will be reviewed under section 215 zoning permit procedure, section 311 site plan review, and section 446 residential district zone of the adopted 2017 zoning bylaws. Russ, I think you're gonna speak to this one.
Jerry, are you on the camera? Do you see him there?
No.
No? Okay. So, Jerry Hyam is the builder, and he is representing, Eleanor Riley, excuse me. And he wrote a letter to be read to you folks, and I've left it in your packet, but I'll read it out loud for the camera. I appreciate your offer to read this note for the upcoming DRB meeting regarding Eleanor Riley's application to add a small 1-bedroom suite over her unattached garage at 78 Dorsch Hill Road. She removed one of 4 original bedrooms in her home several years ago during the pandemic. Her children are again spending time at home in Vermont. This project is intended to replace the bedroom previously removed for family use only. But as you explained earlier, you consider any space that could potentially be rented to be an apartment. The change of use must first be approved. Existing setbacks will remain the same, no building footprints will change. The property appears to be currently in compliance with zoning regulations. I posted the notice of public hearing at the end of her driveway the day I received it from you. You have my contact information in case any further questions arise. So what they've done is they've removed a bedroom out of the home, as he said, and they're putting up an in-law apartment, per se. And at that point, red flags, of course, start to wave, because, of course, in the change of hands of the property, that will become an apartment of sorts, not for just family members. So I have asked Jerry to very specifically add to this, and I would expect it to be a condition of this permit that 4 bedrooms, no matter whether they're located in the garage or a house, be considered the only bedrooms that are tolerable there. And why is it? Because of the septic system and the water supplies are both warranted for 4 bedrooms. So in your packet, you have a picture of the garage. It is a very simple garage. And what Jerry's telling you is he's going to take this roof off. He's going to add a 2nd floor, take one of the bays away and create that as an entranceway and access this apartment from the 2nd floor.
The apartment
Is it gonna have a bathroom or?
Absolutely, it's gonna be a shower,
Oh,
bathroom,
the whole bit.
kitchen, yep. That's why it was brought to you folks, because it's not going
More
to
than
be just
Not
a,
just a room.
it's not just a camp spot where most of the work will be done in the house. No, it will have all the intended uses in that apartment. So in our bylaws, of course, we recognize, and our town plan, we recognize housing for family as very, very important. And so it is a viable application. And now it's up to you folks to review it and understand what he's asking. He's truly asking.
And as far as the use goes with water and all, then are we saying that it's gonna be twice, in other words, it's more than just a room. There's almost two properties on one, which means, will there be enough water?
The state of Vermont creates water usage and septic usage by bedrooms, not by kitchens, bathrooms, water closets. It's all done by bedrooms. So when you apply for a septic permit, it's done by how many bedrooms you have.
Okay, so in a sense, this is the same.
This is exactly the same, and that's what I'm saying, is that one of the conditions that I feel that you should be adding to this is that the total bedrooms do not change. That if for some reason someone purchased this home and created the fourth bedroom back in the house, they're in non-compliance.
What about footings in the garage? Is it known that they will support a full second floor?
Jerry has done that research, and that garage is solidly built, and he will definitely be. I can vouch for him as he'd be reinforcing it if he sees anything in the week. No?
Is this the property that Simon Watts developed?
I'm sorry, I don't know. I just, as Fletcher Proctor was walking out, he said, I totally have no problems with this.
He's a neighbor.
He is a very close neighbor.
He's showing on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And he has no problem with this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I don't have any questions.
I don't really have, I think what you're saying makes sense about if they're permitted for a maximum of 4 bedrooms, they shouldn't.
They're gonna tie into the existing leach field, which is probably permitted for like 2 or 3 bedrooms.
4 bedroom, right?
They have a 4-bedroom septic system right now.
Yep.
And she's removed the 4th one from the house and wants to just move it laterally across the yard. And there will be tied right back into the septic system in a proper fashion. Tim,
Are you okay with that?
I'm good.
Good?
Yep.
So, close this?
Yeah, I'm gonna close application, I have it right here in front of me.
2144.
2144.
7:40 p.m.
Did you want to move to the unfinished business, Russ, tonight, or?
While we have the camera, yes, we probably should talk about the unfinished business and other business.
Okay.
Unfinished business I have in front of me the findings of fact that we spoke to for Dennis Hardy and Tim Hardy's construction of a camp. And they tore down the old one for safety reasons. It will be in the same footprint on the ridgeline protection area, but actually lower than the existing camp that was there. So this is exactly what you had requested of me to write down. I would like to get this signed this evening so I can create the permit. Under other business, in your packet, you have the Camporama's first response to your request that they come up with a plan for auxiliary electricity because the generators are a nuisance.
Do we have that?
I'm not sure we do with that.
I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, I'm sitting with all the copies in my pen, right in my hand. I don't know why you don't have it. You were supposed to get that through osmosis.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
So I sent it to you earlier, and I also sent you the letter that I sent, and for you folks to give to the Cheneys. And this is their first proposal.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few concerns. I don't know if we want to talk about them in deliberative session. I guess 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. would probably be my first concern for charging batteries. They're charging, it says to recharge their onboard batteries or run AC units when necessary.
From 8 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Yeah. I'm thinking that's worth some discussion around.
You mean because it's too long?
Yeah.
It kind of doesn't really solve the issue if you.
Right, that's 13 hours. I would think a lot of that we would want to permit that use during the day while most people are working, right? And we probably want to talk about locations of generators, decibels. I think there's some discussion points we need to.
I'd like to deliberate a little bit, because I'd like to know some more about the original permit, how that came about.
That is your prerogative to call that into deliberative session.
Yeah,
To do that.
Okay?
let's do that.
All right.
Okay, so we'll close down the regular meeting part and move into deliberative session.